Hello, welcome to tutorial 4 for INDD5960 Auburn University. This tutorial is going to be pretty short and sweet, and we are building on top of the cycloid drum machine project that we started in tutorial 3, and this one will conclude the cycloid drum machine, and what we are aiming to deliver is just a little bit of additional user feedback through a HUD. So what I'll be demoing here is a few simple steps to giving you a HUD, a heads-up display on the screen that will allow the player to know exactly how many times they have, what kind of beat they've created, how many times they've swiped. I'm going to pull up the finished product here. You'll notice that the screen isn't lined up correctly for whatever reason. When exporting to the iPad, you have to adjust the camera a little bit. So this is centered on the iPad, not so much on the mobile emulator. All right, so what did we do? We drew some text on the screen that is waiting for you to swipe. When you swipe, it knows to go away. And then we have a counter that displays a number that shows you how many times you swiped. And this will be the basis for how you would draw hit points on the screen, or damage, or what have you, whose turn it is, time. So a couple of nodes that I'm getting ready to run through will help you get some information up on the screen for your player so that they have a better understanding of exactly what their actions have done within your game. All right, so we're going to turn all that off and get to building it. Okay, here we are looking at our scene, just the way we left it at the end of tutorial 3. And you'll definitely want to make sure that everything's working from tutorial 3 before you want to dive into this. So this is where we begin. So in this, we will be using some programming terminology, and I'll provide a cheat sheet to go along with the tutorial so you have something to reference when I use some of this terminology. And we're going to begin with a Boolean. A Boolean is a simple concept. It's just a way of saying true or false. A Boolean is true or false. So here we're going to set variable bool. That's new action, set variable bool. All right, so we've created a Boolean, and what we're going to do with this Boolean is use it to tell that initial statement, that initial swipe to play statement, when to be on and when to be off. So this Boolean is going to control false. So we'll right click there, create new Boolean variable, and it's now false underneath here. All right, false means I don't want you to draw on screen. But of course, if we have a false, we also need a true. So new action, set variable Boolean. There's our second one. And create new Boolean. It's false by default, but you can go into its variables, choose that B value right there. 0 is always false, 1 is always true. Now we have this, we need to tell it when to be true. Well, you might remember this little section of our Kismet script from the last tutorial is a reset. So we know that after you hit reset, that we've cached that the cache for all the swipes is 0. So this would be a good time to remind the player what they need to do. So from the end of this right here, we'll go ahead and say, all right, that statement to draw something on screen should be true after this, after we've reset everything. Another point in time that would make sense for this to print that statement that would be when the level loads. So there we go, level loaded. Okay. Okay. So when do we want this to be false? Well, we probably want it to be false when somebody has swiped. So that's as simple as saying when somebody swipes to the left, we want it to be false. Or when somebody swipes to the right, we want it to be false. swipe up is our reset, so we're going to not worry about that one. And when somebody swipes down, we want it to be false. All right, so our script now knows when to flick between true and false, but it's not doing anything. There's nothing over here. So let's give it something to do. And this is the node that you are going to use to draw everything on the screen. This is the most important node of this entire tutorial. So in this case, this node is a event. And so we're going to look under New Event, HUD, Heads Up Display right there. And here's our option, Draw Text. There we go. So each frame, this event is firing off. It's looking for what text it wants to display and whether it's active or not. So we will drop one more Boolean right here. And this one is going to control whether our text is being drawn or not. So for right now, this will never draw because it has false. But we've written this part of the script here, the true and false part, so that at certain times it can change this variable from false to true and back again. And the way we'll make that happen is simply by grabbing target here and hooking it up. So this is now going to set variable true to this variable right here, the one that draw text is connected to. And false is going to be connected here. So this allows you to turn things on and off. But at this point, we're not actually drawing any text. So let's draw some text. This is a pretty powerful node. All right. So the first thing we are going to need for this node is a font. So fonts in Unreal are a texture. It's a sheet with a bunch of letters and numbers on it. And the engine knows when you type in a character, what coordinates that character lives on this texture, on this sheet. And it matches it up so that you get, the font display that you've designed, or the font that you're after. So let's look at some of the fonts that are already in Unreal. Make life a lot easier. If you open up the content browser and then you look at these lists up here, you'll see all types. You'll want to click all types for object type, just so that we can get the full list of object types. And in this list you will find fonts. So click fonts. Now that's the only thing that the content browser is showing. All right, so what font do we want to use? You're welcome to play around with the different fonts. What I ended up settling on for this tutorial was UI Fonts Fold OB18. This guy right here. Didn't have a super strong style to it and was the appropriate size. So once you have UI Fonts Fold OB18 selected, you'll just go over here and pop it in. All right, and this is the font we'll use for everything. So we can close the content browser. That's the only thing we'll need out of the content browser for now. So we now have a font. Here you can set a color. I'm going to stick with white for now. Now the location on the screen is the next most important thing. The location is measured between 0 and 1. It's basically a percentage. So with that said, we want this text semi-centered in the screen. This is the text that we're using to kind of kick the game off. We want somebody to notice it right away. So we're going to go with 0.5 on the x-axis. And then if I go with 0.5 on the y-axis, this will end up drawing right on top of one of my little white bars. So we're going to nudge it down a bit, down to 0.65. Now, this is measured from the top left corner. So, all right, 0.65 has, moved it downward. Now, we'll want to switch the draw method from wrap to center. So this will center the text from that location. And then, most importantly, don't forget, is active. We want this thing to, by default, always draw, but we are telling it through the script when it's supposed to turn on and off. Now, as anybody that did the second tutorial will tell you, Do not forget max trigger count on any of these events. You need to think about whether this fires once or fires infinitely. So we're going to set that to 0 to make sure this thing fires infinitely. And from there, we're in pretty good shape. Okay, so we now have a node that knows how it's supposed to draw stuff, but it has no clue what to draw. This is our next programming term of the day, a string. So these red nodes are always Booleans. These apple green ones here are always strings. So we're going to create a new string variable. A string is simply a word for a series of characters that the engine will just draw or search for or look for, but it does not necessarily see them as, while they might be numbers, it doesn't calculate them. It doesn't use them like they're numbers. The string is simply something that the engine will not use as anything other than, oh, okay, here's a series of characters. It's never going to try and add strings to create a product. And all you can really ever do with strings is, or the primary use is to print a string or to compare a string. So let's make our string. So the string value here is whatever you want the player to see when there's no action going on the screen or when the game starts up. So we'll say swipe to create a beat. That's our string. So at this point, we have a decision that's being made when to draw. We have a node that says how to draw, and then we have a string here that is what to draw. Let's give it a shot. First, we'll try it on the regular previewer, and there we go, right here in the middle, swipe to create a beat. And we'll try it on our mobile previewer, since the screen will be smaller and the scale would be different, the resolution's different. We need to make sure that the layout works and that the size of the font's good. And that looks pretty good. All right. So that's the first half of the demo in less than 15 minutes. You've got some text on the screen, and it knows when to draw and when not to draw. Actually, we did not test our logic. Let's do that again real quick. We just made sure it drew when the world loaded. Now I'm going to make sure it actually stops drawing. All right, it's drawing. It should go away now. And it does. Come back. All right, go away. We're in good shape. Now we're going to create, we're actually going to draw numbers for the number of times you've swiped so that the player has an idea of how many times they've swiped. They can see if they overdid it or not. This is not much more difficult. It's basically the same operation, but with a conversion at the beginning to make sure that the game understands how to draw the number that we've created for the number of swipes. Okay, so first off, as you recall, we have a float here. It's a number with a decimal. That is the number of times somebody has swiped. This is what we want to print on the screen. Now, just a minute ago, we built something that'll draw stuff to screen, but it wants a string. It does not want a float. It does not want numbers. It just wants a string, which is just a series of characters, and it doesn't care that it is a true number. So we have to do some conversion. So this is our float value that we want to print. The first thing we're going to do is convert this into an integer. The reason we're going to do that is because we don't want to show the player up on the screen 1.00000. That's not very clear information to our player. In their head, they swiped once. This is an integer, once. They didn't swipe 1.5 once. So the way we take that value with a decimal and turn it into a value without a decimal is by using this simple command here, cast to integer. The number we want to chop all of the zeros off of is this one. And we want to know what that result is. So now we have a simple number to work with. Now the print text to screen does not want an integer, it wants a string. So now we're going to new action, miscellaneous, convert to string. This will take anything you plug into this pink dongle and spit it out as a string. Spit it out as something the game engine knows, understands how to print. So there we go. I got this string hanging out here. Empty string waiting to be populated with some number. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about when we want this to happen. We want this to happen after somebody has swiped. So over here we've already added a swipe, compared it, and then written the swipe to this node here where it's cached until it's ready to be kicked into the animation. So it makes sense to me that we go ahead and we say, well, after we've written this number, we've already compared it, and we know this is the number that's going to get pushed in the animation. We'll go ahead and attach it right here where it's written. I'm not attaching it after the 2-second timer because I feel like this needs to be more immediate feedback. So I swipe, I get a number. I am going to add a tiny delay on this node here. I'm going to add a delay of 0.2. This is so that when somebody swipes, the UI here will turn on and it will spend that extra, 1/5 of a second waiting to collect this number. That way, I won't be printing a 0 on the screen at the exact same moment that somebody swipes. I'm giving the computer, milliseconds so that it can write this value, and then this fetches it. So that's what that 0.2 does there. All right. So when does this draw on the screen, and when does it not draw on the screen? That's what we have to do next. So we're going to new action, set variable bool. We're going to do this again. Just copy and paste that guy. All right. We know we need a false, which is right there. And we know we need a true. Set that to true again. We know that we want this set to true after somebody swipes. And we know we want it set to false when somebody's hit reset. And we've told the other, we've told this other guy to start drawing. So we'll just do that. All right, so now we know when we want this turning on and off. So now we just need to set up the draw text again. So again, that is new event, not new action. It's an event. HUD, draw text. All right. Again, we know we need a Boolean to tell it when to draw and when not to draw. These are the values. We're going to tell it. We're going to feed it so it knows when to draw and what to draw. Now, we've already even set up the text that it's going to draw. We know that we have taken this long decimal number, converted it from a float to an integer. So it's just a simple 1-digit number. Or, well, it's a simple non-decimal number. It might have multiple digits. And then here we've converted it to something that draw text understands. We've converted it to a string. And now we're going to say, hey, draw text, draw that. But right now, draw text doesn't know where or exactly how to draw. So we're going to come in here, and we already know what font we want to use because we put it in this node. So let's just copy paste that out. Copy. Paste that in right there. So now we have a font. Since this is our blue, our blue baseline here, we'll go ahead and make our text blue too. So we'll go with something kind of blue like that. All right, now we need to know where to draw it. I ended up placing these along the bottom of the screen to kind of keep them out of the way. It's a number you can reference but isn't in your face. So this one is going to be 0.05 from the left edge of the screen, and at the bottom 0.9. Like I said, this begins in the top left corner. So 0.05 is just barely nudging the text out from the left edge, and then 0.9 is pushing this way down to the bottom. Again, we're going to center the text. We want this to draw because our script here is handling when it draws and when it doesn't. Max trigger count, again, is 0 for infinite. And that should do it, folks. Let's test it out and see what we forgot. All right, so our text is drawing here, which is good. When I swipe, it goes away, and there's our number. I've swiped once. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So now we can tell our player how many times they've swiped. And like I said, you can easily imagine how you would use this for players' hit points or players' ammunition or number of turns or a timer. Once you've calculated the type of value here that you want to give somebody, setting it up and putting it in front of them is simple. Now, we want to make sure that this is done for each of our different animations. And this is fortunately something that's very easily copy and pasted and set up for the rest of our animations. You literally can just swipe the whole thing, copy paste, and we'll break the line that's connecting, what number we're fetching, because now we want to fetch this number for our golden symbols. And we know that this is over here where we want to kick off this animation. And this is actually the same. We know that when you hit reset, we want to make that false. So the basic connections are already set up for our next one. The only difference is the color and position on screen for our text. So this one's more golden color. And the position that we want is not just barely nudged over from the left side of the screen, but instead dead center. All right, let's do that again. Here's our third one. Break this link. This is the number here that we want printed. This is when we want it printed. Over here, this is when we want it to turn off. And the color for this guy is green. Green's always tough for me. And then the position on screen for this guy. Remember, this one is 0.5, halfway over. So this one is probably going to be 0.95. So it's very far from the left edge, almost all the way to the right. All right. Now let's see if those simple additions actually work the way I expect them to. All right, swipe degree to beat, it's working. Swipe right, see what happens. There's my 1. Swipe down a couple times. Oh, 3 times. And there's our blue. All right. you have it. You now have some simple UI feedback through the HUD for your player. I hope this helps and allows you to deliver a little more information to your player. And that concludes this tutorial. Thank you very much.